This is Nick Ricada, and you're listening to a Sunset Sea production. It's better than whiskey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I'm Holden, and I'm joined today by my co-host Simone. And today we're going to be diving into the seventh episode of 14. So we're at the halfway mark now for the series overall of Berlin Alexanderplatz, which is a 1980 West German television miniseries that was also released theatrically as a 15-hour, like a 14 and a half hour film. And so, as is kind of like, it's, one of the fun facts about the whole thing altogether is that the people who would buy tickets for it would come in over the course of like a week, basically, and then they'd have their tickets stubbed for every day that they'd come in. And so it was a weird little thing that they had, but I'm not sure how common it is. I'm not sure how many other movies have done this before, sort of thing before, but that's what they did with this one anyway. And so, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting little kind of, find, I guess. And it's relatively obscure, but it's on YouTube now all for free. And so that's why we're reviewing it. And we're going episode by episode, just talking about it. And this is episode 7, and it's called, title is You Can Amputate an Oath. And it's a very fitting title, as you're about to find out, because, I guess spoiler alert, Franz ends up losing his right arm. So in the previous episode, in episode 6, part 6, he was involved in a burglary with some of his friends, Mech and Reinhold, and he sort of unwittingly got himself involved in it. It wasn't something that he wanted to do at all, because he's been trying to avoid getting back into a life of crime over the course of the entire series thus far, right? But now he's, in the last episode, he got back into it, and he got, he basically pissed off the wrong person. He pissed off Reinhold, and Reinhold threw him out the back of the car that they were driving in, their getaway car, and he ended up getting run over by the car that was immediately behind them, following them, because Reinhold thought that the car behind them was following them. And so he basically sacrificed Franz, and kind of just also used, it's a bit complicated, but he also used it as an opportunity to get rid of him, because the two had a fight earlier and there was a bit of bad blood there. And so it was like two birds with one stone for Reinhold. But from that accident, Franz ends up, his right arm gets run over, and so they have to amputate it. And so that's why this episode is called You Can Amputate an Oath, because now certain loyalties have been, tested, certain partnerships have been broken, and so on and so forth, bridges burned and whatnot. And by all, for all intents and purposes, it seems as though we're going to be entering a new era within the show itself, right? So things have changed dramatically. And so just to go over what happens in the episode itself, so like I said, Franz survives being run over by the car from the previous episode, but loses his right arm in the process, this arm right here. He recovers at Eva's apartment, so I was right, because last episode I predicted that it would be Eva's apartment. So he was in Eva's apartment. He's recovering over there, right? But Eva and her boyfriend Herbert want to seek revenge against Pums, who is Mech's boss. He's the ringleader of the criminal syndicate, right? Against Pums and his crew. And so Pums orders all of his men to contribute to a collection to pay Franz back for damages and hopefully keep him from snitching on them to the police. So it's basically hush money, right? And so they all chip in a little bit. And Reinhold is the only one out of any of the criminals who refuses to pay, even though, of course, obviously he was the one responsible for Franz losing his arm in the first place. So there's a little bit of irony there. He leaves Pums' office in a storm. And then Bruno, who is another one of the criminals, who was actually the man in, I think it was the last episode in part 6, who was fighting another guy on the street. And basically, Bruno is the reason why Franz got involved in all of this in the first place, because Bruno told Franz to go talk to Pums to tell him that he wouldn't be able to participate in the burglary that was happening that night. And so Pums took the opportunity to use that as an opportunity to force Franz to replace Bruno. So Bruno's pretty much to blame for all of it, honestly. But yeah, Bruno now he tries delivering the money to Franz at Ava's apartment. He goes over there, but Ava becomes paranoid and goes hysterical when he reaches into his pocket to retrieve the money, because she thinks it's a gun and that Bruno is trying to kill them, right? And so the stress from all of that ends up causing Franz to collapse and faint. right? And when he wakes up again, he decides to get some fresh air. However, he appears to still be in a delirious state of mind during that point, and he ends up finding himself on a burning street full of like prostitutes and just weirdos, and there's this man in a white tuxedo on the street who seems to be the devil, right, trying to tempt him, and the devil or whoever he may be spends a few minutes trying to offer Franz one of his finest women, but Franz ultimately rejects his offer and manages to make it to the end of the street without giving in to his temptation, right? After which his surroundings assume normal form and the world is the world once more. Franz then enters a bar where he orders 3 beers and 1 shot glass of something strong and distilled called Kumler, and he holds a conversation with the alcohol as he drinks it, right? He pretends to be the 3 beers and the Kumler, and he gives them all different voices and personalities before finishing them, paying the bartender, and actually going off with her friend because it's a female bartender and she's there with her friend, and they're the only people in the bar. Franz comes in and the friend is attracted to him, and she sits there and listens to the entire thing, and still she doesn't seem to mind that he's apparently insane and also crippled now because he's missing an arm, right? So she goes off with him anyway. She just basically says like, everybody's crazy, and sort of just says fuck it, and they go off together, walk off into the sunset, as they say, right? And so and also she doesn't mind his handicap, but Franz himself also doesn't seem to mind his new handicap, and actually continues to live in spite of it. It's almost completely unacknowledged by him altogether. It's like not even really that big of a deal for most of the episode because he doesn't draw like a lot of attention to it. He doesn't seem to mind. There are other things going through his head throughout. But yeah. So from there, Franz and this woman, we'll call her like the cackling woman because her thing is that she just laughs at everything Franz says, right? So Franz and the cackling woman, they end up going to the subway that's been in a lot of the other episodes, right? The subway where the old newspaper vendor is, and Franz runs into him again, and the vendor, his former boss, I guess, reveals that the doctors have removed his second testicle because that was the thing that he brought up earlier. It's a little weird, right? But it's like in a previous episode he mentioned how he had to have one of his testicles removed because it had I can't say it. Tuberculosis, right? Yeah, tuberculosis or whatever. I can't say it for some reason. But it's that thing where basically something can't hold the temperature anymore or whatever, so it dies. So they took that ball out, and he's lost his other nut, and so he's basically a ballless wonder. And that that's a whole thing that we'll get into. But it's basically over the course of the series, people are getting older, things are decaying, right? One era is dying, and another is beginning, and the new era isn't going to be that great. We probably can all assume from a historical point of view, right? But yeah. So things are getting a little, things are getting worse and worse. Time is changing essentially as well, on a fundamental level, right? And so Franz has a conversation with the old man who is slowly decaying, as they all are, I guess, as we all are, right? And Mech also appears actually, Mech himself, and Mech sees him. He sees Franz out of the corner of his eye and basically tries to leave as quickly as possible, right? But Franz just sort of walks up to him and starts casually making conversation with him anyway. And Mech asks him, why he's acting so chipper and normal, because he seems to expect Franz to be mad at him for what went on with the arm and everything. He expects him to be bitter and out for revenge and whatnot. But Franz isn't. He doesn't seem to harbor any grudge. Franz bears no ill will by the look of it, and they part ways on tentatively good terms. And so from there, I guess the episode basically ends with Franz in some sort of underground bar, making conversation with other various societal, social rejects, right? He's now working as like a sort of an anomaly, kind of like a circus type. He basically advertises the circus, but he also does like his own kind of act or something where he lifts weights as a one-armed man. He's like the one-armed strong man. So that's his gig now. He's not dealing in newspapers anymore, or fruit, because obviously that's what caused all this in the first place. But so he's in this underground bar, and the bar's occupants, they include himself, the cackling woman from the bar from before, the other bar, a Prussian war veteran. The Prussian War was the war between, I think it was France and Germany, right? in the late 19th century, so the 1870s. So that guy, he's old enough to be. I don't think he's a World War I veteran. I think he'd be too old by then. But I think he's a Prussian War veteran. So he's from like the kind of the. It's like not too much time passed between then and now, but it's like shit, a lot of things changed. So yeah, it's interesting. That now is sort of the decline of the Weimar Republic anyway, but now we're really in like the end of the Weimar era. So it's interesting how they included that in there, and how it all sort of weaves together, because I think the way we tend to think of history is very segmented. It's kind of wrong. Like we have a faulty understanding of it, of a bad framework. I don't think we really think of it as life or whatever. It's because it's like, I don't know, just a little tangent, but it's like, just think of like the 90s or the 80s. It's like we think of it as like a completely different world, but it was really only like 30 or 40 years ago or whatever. It's like, it's not that long ago. I mean, even the 2000s, that was 20 years ago, and life was a lot different. Things were different. They just were. Things are always changing. I don't think there's ever really a normal, because normal is relative, right? But that's that. That I think that's what including that character really helps to convey. Just that little thing within the bar scene itself, right? And so yeah, you have him, you have the Prussian War veteran. You also have this man with like a top hat and a monocle. He must be like a performer or something. He's got this very theatrical getup, right? But he seems to be normal. He seems to be sane. Like he's like he's just a normal guy. He just has this weird outfit on. And then there's also, I guess, above all, the most important person there would have to be the loud. There's like this loudmouth thief. He's a guy who steals shit, right? And he basically. He spends most of his time in the bar just like spouting these controversial political statements about how conscription is bad and how governments shouldn't force their citizens into war. Old arguments by today's standards, but big hot button topics. Back then, definitely. And yeah, so this guy he's got all these political statements, and he also spends a lot of time like justifying his criminal behavior by going on this monologue that takes a somewhat, like, I guess, eccentric view of the world and reality as a whole. He delivers this monologue about how the notion of definition as a whole is relative, right? And he demonstrates this by making the cackling woman walk around the bar for a minute. And she does this, and when she does, the various other people in the bar all describe the way that she did it differently. So one person says that she danced, another person says she marched, and so on and so forth. And the thief concludes from this little weird example that basically that everyone sees the world differently, and that therefore it's okay if he defines stealing as removing or changing ownership, because like he said, like the notion of definition or whatever is relative, and we're all different. That's basically his argument. And we can get into whether it's serious or not later, but it's definitely I guess it's an interesting highlight from this particular episode. And so yeah, going off that, other highlights from this episode would include Silly, Reinhold's girlfriend, I mean, performing a cabaret song and dance at the bar that Franz is at with the other outsiders. That same bar. She's there performing, and oh god, the lights all messed up. Whatever, we'll just keep going. Silly notices him right at the very end of the performance and confronts Reinhold about it, but Reinhold doesn't answer when she asks why he didn't tell her that Franz was still alive before, right? And so it seems as though their relationship is pretty much done and over with right there, or at least really strained now, because it's basically all like them getting back together. I mean, if you remember from the last episode, the only reason they really got back together was because Franz died, and because Reinhold lied about it, right? And it's a different world, it's like back then, a girl couldn't probably, like a girl her or like Silly's age, she's kind of getting older, if you could tell from the way she looks and whatnot, right? Like she probably needed to be with someone like at all times. She probably needed to have like male partner, like a male protector at all times. And so it would make sense that if she thought that the person she was with before died, like she wouldn't have any other choice but to go with someone like Reinhold, because they know each other. It would be much harder to like go out and get someone completely different. So it makes sense, it's like these are times of quiet, not so quiet desperation. Actually, it's pretty messed up. So it's like you do what you got to do, basically. That's the kind of world that this is, right? These are the times that in which this whole story is set. So it makes sense. Like it's not a modern day thing, and you can't really look at it the same way. You can't go like, well, she's a piece of shit because she left Franz right away without even warning him or whatever. It's like it doesn't people can't afford such luxuries back then. At this particular point in time, right? Like they can't take like a year off to feel bad about themselves or whatever. It's like they got to keep moving. That's how things work. That's the dynamic. That's the mood. That's the atmosphere, et cetera, right? And so the climate, I guess, if you want to call it that. Although I don't really like that word, but anyway. So from there, from there, I also think that whole thing, the exchange with between Reinhold and Silly, their relationship. My prediction for that is that the relationship will probably end, and Reinhold will somehow twist that to make it like Franz's fault, and then use it as ammunition against him in later episodes. Just another reason for him to dislike him, right? So we'll see what happens with that. But also in this episode, we are actually, as the viewers, we are shown for the second time in the series so far, Franz murdering his wife Ida with the comb brush, beating her to death with a comb brush. Again, we get to see it again, but this time the scene is it's different. It's a little different this time, right? Because it's overlaid with a narration of a suicidal 26-year-old woman's diary entries. It's weird, right? But so the woman, the narrator reads these diaries, right? And the woman who's writing the diary writes about how much she wants to catch a serious illness so that she can die without traumatizing her family. As Franz delivers the fatal blows on his wife, it's this, it's another bit of juxtaposition. But this one's like really, really like dark. Like they didn't really pull the punches with this one. It's kind of all bad now, right? So yeah, it's interesting. We've gone from like, and another thing to do, they also bring up again the concept of like, or the theme of like cattle slaughter. There's a point where the narrator mentions how like, it's like, oh, we let cows, pigs, and sheep and all that die, and we don't really care. We don't give a shit. It doesn't bother us. But it's like, so why does it matter if a person dies? And that kind of connects that. It's like, well, why should we care if this 26-year-old German woman wants to live or die? It's like, isn't it all the same? If we have one standard for one thing and another for another, then which one's true, or which one's more real, and like, why do we do that, and why does any of it really matter when it comes down to it? All that sort of, I guess it's like moral relativism or whatever. But yeah, you get into a bit of that sort of ethical, like pondering or something. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for this episode. Did I miss anything, Simone? Is there anything you'd like to add to that before we move on to the discussion portion of the episode?
No.
Sure. So, as always, Simone, what would you rate this episode out of 10 and why? What rating are you going to give?
I think getting back to the summary or recalling what really happened, just like what you did a while ago or a few days ago, and the way you narrated, I'm able to look back on those main highlights that I didn't give much notice of. I give it I guess 8.5 or 9, because there are a lot of things that happened. Because it seems like that most episodes that we've seen so far, or episode 5 and below, or it seems like that there's only one set of events that are taking place, or there are arcing events, but not as this one, because in this one there are a lot of things that had happened, or the previous scenes that took place on the other episodes comes to this one, and it creates a lot of different perspective, and it makes this episode stands out, I guess.
Yeah, this one has like, whereas like most episodes are only about like one major theme or, one major event within the overall series itself, right? Or I guess film or whatever. Series, let's just call it series. Let's stop with that whole thing. This one has like 3 or 4 different things going on, right? And so I would agree with you. And for that reason, I would actually give this episode a 9.5, right? Because the way I see it is this, we're at the halfway mark in the series overall so far, right? And for me, this has been the first episode in the series so far that has done a really fine job of balancing action with insight, right? If that makes sense. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like the basic narrative elements are sound and entertaining, while still allowing plenty of room for the exploration of Franz's character, which seems to be, of course, the main point of the series overall. It's mainly a character study. It's all centered around the protagonist and what's going on with him psychologically, emotionally, etc. And so yeah, for me, it just did a good job of taking the best of both worlds and kind of marrying them and doing something interesting with it, right? Because what I will say is the pacing and action in this particular episode, they made it so that I hardly even noticed that it ran on for over an hour, or for an hour, right? It's like, most of every part is at least an hour long. And this was the first part that I've seen so far out of the 7 that we've watched that didn't run on too long. I didn't get tired. I didn't get tired of it at the last 20 minutes or whatever. I was in it the entire time, and not only was I in it for the entire time, but this was also the first episode that really made me want to just keep on going, in spite of the format that we've curated for this, this show, for the podcast, right? I was almost willing to break the rhythm and just get straight into the next part, and maybe even the next 3, and because this part was that engaging for me. And I know I said something similar about part 6, but the difference there was that when it came to part 6, I only really had the temptation to watch ahead by one episode because it left off on that cliffhanger, right? So I think when it came to part 6, it's like I only really wanted to find out that one specific thing, like what was going to happen to Franz after he got hit by the car, and that thing was immediately addressed like within the first 5 minutes of this episode. So I feel like if I'd found that out, I probably would have stopped watching after the first 5 first 5 minutes of part 7, and then just saved it for later. But it's like with this one, I really wouldn't mind just like sitting in front of the TV for another 7 hours and just getting through the whole thing and just experiencing the full scope of the work, which would ruin the point of this the podcast. But you know what I mean. That's I think for me, I think that's probably definitely a mark of a good piece of entertainment, right, or art or whatever media. The fact that it makes you want to do something so badly that you're willing to sacrifice other things or whatever. Just to, you don't have to sacrifice anything really, but it's like just I really like I wouldn't mind watching the rest of it like right now, like just all in one sitting. I'm in it. And I think it's good to be passionate about these kind of things. I think that's really that's the magic that a lot of things. I would say that this episode in particular, it serves as a perfect halfway mark for the series overall. It was balanced and it had a little bit of everything to offer to the viewer. So many different courses. Let's just say it's like a meal. It's like a big feast. It's like so many different dishes to get to in so little time. Because like on the one hand you have the whole thing. It's like what's going on at this bar? Like what's Franz's new job like? What's going to happen between Franz and Reinhold in the future? It's like how are the criminals going to try to get Franz back into their ring or whatever? It's like what's going on? What's the relationship between Franz, Herbert, and Eva going to turn out to be like? Because there's like a weird love triangle going on there. It's like, is Franz really going to be able to pull through and redeem himself? There's so much going on. It's like, what was that burning street scene with the devil and all the prostitutes and everything? It's like there's just so much to get into, so many different avenues for interpretation and discussion and I guess meditation even, just to get into. It's like, God, it's really good. This one is I can't say it enough. It's really good. I'm liking it so far. I'm digging it. And what I will say is the only problem with this kind of storytelling is that it makes it so that everything else looks like shit in comparison. You know what I mean? Like once you experience this level of like richness and complexity in a story, it makes it very hard to go back because the standard has been raised. It's been upped permanently. I mean, at least that's how I see it. It's like after you've watched something like this, one thing like this, all you can really do from there is go out and find more like it and just indulge yourself over and over and over again. You're living off feasts now. You keep going to, it's like, I don't know, it's like going to like a $500 chicken restaurant versus going to KFC. It's like, KFC's, it's all fine and good for a little bit, right? But it makes you shit a little bit and it's not that tasty when it comes down to it. And sometimes they cook your chicken a little too, unevenly for your liking. But then you go to this fantastic, Mediterranean chicken restaurant or something, and they give you some I don't even know, like some Corinthian turkey or something weird like that, and it's really good. And it's like, oh shit, like this is it. I never want to have anything but this. It's about that. I get it now. I get it. It's a luxury, but it's a luxury that you want to experience just 24/7, which probably wouldn't make it a luxury at that point. You probably shouldn't eat feasts all the time. Otherwise, you'll be like 500 pounds. But it makes you want to give into that temptation. It really does. It makes you want to just go for it, And so, yeah, that's what I say. That's what I say. Is there anything you'd like to add to any of that, Simone? You good there?
I like that comparison. No, I think we've been talking about this episode, or we've been waiting for something like this episode to happen. Because just like you said, and I can't remember which episode is it that we thought that this would be the we always we always looking forward for an episode that would break or surpass the other episodes that we covered so far, and we always say that uh it make the whole series different. It make us look at different angles, or really shows how it's really hard to predict. And with this one, it's really unexpected how things turns out into this one. The sixth episode, yeah, just like you said, that the last part of it, it's the most interesting part, or maybe the only interesting part where we're able to look forward to this one. But then this one seems like there's no other. Uh, every second counts. Everything that took place, there are a lot to get from it. That aside from comparing it with other episodes, that you said that there's particular episode that seems like a filler, just like in some uh, long anime series or whatnot. That they try to include those to be able to prolong the show or whatnot. But there's also this kind of episode that where all comes together, and it seems like that it's not only answered the particular set of themes, but it adds a very different element. It takes it to a different path or a lot of perspective to look at.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like even like the filler episodes, right? Like I think it's important to draw a distinction between them and like the typical what people would consider to be like the conventional, the average filler episode. Because even the filler episodes in this, I think the difference is that the ones here, they're still important, but they like you said before, they single out like one particular theme or element or whatever, and just go like whole in on that for an hour or so, right? Because these are like 50-minute run times per episode, and so that's the main difference. And it's interesting to get into that one single topic or whatever. But it's like with this, it's like a whole smorgasbord. It's a whole thing. It's a buffet table. It's it's really it's a nice break from that, I guess, because maybe it can be a little, maybe not tedious at times, but just it's an unexpected surprise. It's a welcome surprise to have like 4 or 5 major things to cover in one sitting. It's really like, wow, like you almost don't think it's possible because you get so used to just the one meat, the one course or whatever. But even though the one course itself is not bad on its own, it's probably better than 90% of all other single courses like it. It's just this is a beast of an altogether different nature, right? And so it makes it really interesting, I think. And I don't even know like just how I can really articulate it, but anyway, I guess let's just start with like the obvious, right? Like let's just get into the elephant in the room. Let's address it right away, Simone. How did you react when they first revealed that Franz had lost his arm? Was it surprising to you, or did you already expect something like that to happen, or did it just not like have an impact or whatever? Just run me through some of your feelings about it when it happened, and I guess after as well.
I guess it's a common. I kind of has this prediction that this kind of thing might take place. That's why, just as you said, in the first 5 minutes of the show, the cliffhanger in the last episode, it's already been answered, and it seems like that there's no other way, or there's some predictions that probably the next couple of minutes might not be interesting. It's weird that how they maneuver this. Not so. I didn't see this kind of event, or plot twist as interested as the following events that took place. Because it's kind of in the might be the probably the level one, and and this enables up to transitions to a different level and of intensity throughout the whole episode.
Right, yeah, it's just a stepping stone to greatness or whatever in terms of the narrative and everything. It's like maybe in like a soap opera it'd be like some big thing like dun 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 Ronaldo lost his arm. What's gonna happen now? It's like, but here it's what's more important is actually sort of, I guess, taking time to like I guess what's the word for it? I guess sort of just run through the real life consequences of something like this, because it's a much more grounded series, right? So it's like what really happened? Like how do you go on when you lose an appendage like that? When you lose a limb, it's kind of a big deal. It's like it's hard to even imagine like not being able to use like one hand. Like if I just put it behind me, it's like I'm kind of everything becomes a lot more difficult all of a sudden. I mean, like just I don't know if you ever want to know what it's like. Just spend a day like just tie your hand behind your arm behind your back or something, and just try to do everything one-handed. And well, also try doing it with your dominant hand too, because Ryan, we can. I think it's assumed. I think they imply it in the show that Franz is right-handed, so that was his writing hand. That was his dominant arm. Now he's got to use the hand that he's not used to using. I'm left-handed, so it's not the same for me. But it's like, if I lost my left hand, I'd be fucked because I'd have to teach myself everything all over again. Like I don't know how to write with my right hand, So it's like he's got to switch everything over. It's a really hard. It's a big transition. It's not some overnight thing or whatever. But yeah, those are the implications of that. But in terms of the show itself, I mean, it's not going to be boring. It's not just going to be mundane stuff like him trying to do his taxes with his undominant hand or whatever. It's going to be more like, what's going to happen. Like what's going to happen if he gets involved in the crime stuff again, and like someone tries to kill him, and he tries to like reach for a gun or something, but he can't get to it fast enough because he maybe still thinks that muscle memory or whatever. He thinks that his right arm is still there, and he tries to reach for the gun with his right arm, but it doesn't exist, anymore. And then he gets killed or something like that. That's a very real possibility. Just like things like that to get into. So I guess Simone, a follow up question to this would be like, do you think this his loss of limb is going to be is it going to play a major role in episodes to come? Is it going to be a problem, or is it something that he can handle realistically? Do you think?
I think you can handle it with the sort of direction. It might be a bit far or whatever. It's something that how this episode ends, or how they create a different plot for France. It seems that the following set of events that may take place are in favor of his disability, or they he might not be it wouldn't be that hard for him to adapt to wherever he's going to take part in the following events.
Yeah, because like they establish, he seems to have like really good luck sometimes, really shit luck or whatever. But as they establish when he's talking to Franz in the subway station, right? He's like, yeah, things are I just have to keep going. I have to keep moving on because life's hard for some people and it isn't for others. Life's really hard on some people because you have to make space for others or whatever. He said, and yeah, this is kind of that in action. Really, that's all there is to say. But I will say that just in terms of writing and everything, like they probably will. Obviously, they're probably going to bring it up again in some form or fashion, and it's probably going to be a problem. I just don't know how. It'll probably. But my vague prediction is that he'll get fucked over during another crime job, during another burglary or whatever. Maybe someone will try to screw him over, and they might be able to more easily because he's only half the man he used to be in a certain sense or whatever. Right? But yeah. Not that I think he's whatever, I don't know. But yeah, so from there, what I want to know, Simone, is what did you think of the music in this episode? Did you notice anything in particular about it this time around?
I think it goes well. I mean in the they changed the particular melody to they use a different instrument in playing that particular song that I play over and over in harmonica, which enables it to be more favorable in the ear. And the fact that I'm not able to notice it as much as though how it didn't grows that well in the previous episode. Probably it's the main reason or an evidence that it seems like that it goes well, that it's blend along, and uh, it seems like that it's able to come together with a series of events that taking place and blends well to the other elements that which enables us to not notice it that much.
Yes, I'll say this about the music in this episode, right? Like there's an outro. So in the outros, there's like a version of like I guess the harmonica song. Let's call it like Franz's theme or something, right? Or something, right? Like the harmonica song. There's a version of it there that's much lighter and like almost like an acoustic, kind of like stripped back version of it. That's really good. It really suits the end title sequence, right? It sets the mood that it hopes to. It's somber, it's reflective. It gives you time to it's like the perfect accompaniment for like digesting the events that occurred during the runtime, like just then, right? But and I really I like the music in the bar scene as well. The dance pop slash like party slash like pop music, popular music at the time, the jazz and the jazz and the big band and the song, kind of like the quartets and stuff like that. That music it fits very well with the atmosphere that the series is trying to create overall. Like that's the kind of music that I expected the whole soundtrack to be full of, right? And not this harmonica, but like more so along those sorts of lines, right? To kind of capture the zeitgeist of the times. But then like the cultural mood and everything, right? Of the 1920s in general, right? Because it's always been known as like the jazz age, the big like fun time, like the calm before the storm, or not even the calm before the storm, but the fucking around that created the storm, really, the disaster, like moments before disaster and all that. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have the outro music, you have the music in the bar, all that good stuff that's genuinely good, and it's been in other episodes too. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you still have the goddamn harmonica that just doesn't fit in any of the scenes that it's featured in. And for this episode, it almost seems as if they've upped the ante a little and even tried using it for or to dramatic effect, right? And this dramatic harmonica comes into play mainly in the scenes in Pum's office where Reinhold refuses to contribute to the collection of hush money for Franz, right? And again, a second time when Franz passes out after thinking Bruno was about to shoot him in Ava's apartment. So in those two scenes, there's this dramatic harmonica that's like boom, it like takes it to another step and kind of like tries to use it to like shock the viewer or whatever, like to accompany the shock that the viewer is supposedly experiencing. But I hate cue music in general. I hate mood music. I don't like it when a show tries to like force you to feel emotions by like playing like shitty music or whatever. It's like if it's done well, it's done well, but if it's not, it's very obvious and it just comes off as very cheap and, like I said before, manipulative and just kind of like sticky and gross. It's like what is this here for? I would much rather, like at that point, you would rather have silence than bad music. Bad music always dips you into the negative. It always puts you in the red. Whereas with like no music at all, it's like, well, at least then you can focus on other things. Or with ambience too, like in Tarkovsky, a lot of Tarkovsky, it isn't even music at all. The soundtrack is usually just ambience. It's just sounds. It's like nature or it's just buzzing, like fucked up droning and stuff, weird shit like that. Like that's better than some like fucking shitty harmonica. And for me it's like, come on, like what are you guys doing? It's like everything else is so well done, it just sticks out like a sore thumb to me. It's like you guys you decided to go with this, like this was the final choice. It's like really, like come on, I don't know. It's just and yeah, I guess I'll say like it doesn't while it doesn't like ruin either scene. It doesn't ruin them. It's still, like I said, it sticks out like a sore thumb in both of the scenes that it's in, and it's almost this time around. It's like it's almost to a laughable degree. It's that bad. Like I remember watching it. I actually did laugh out loud when I heard it, because it's like, what is this doing here? It just doesn't. It's so melodramatic. It's so over the top. It's like, come on, man. This isn't a kid show. This isn't like, soap opera number 457, where I don't know, Gabriel just got his got the family house deed stolen because his sister wants to marry her son or something, and so they ran off with it. Or it's like what's going on? There's no inheritance here. There's no family quarrel. It's like this is supposed to be real shit, and everything else about it feels so real, except this very manufactured, very artificial, very forced goddamn harmonica that they're obsessed with, like, making the thing. They really want to make this like the thing that you associate with the show. They want to make it iconic. Like, they're trying so badly to make it something like the Jaws theme or Star Wars, like da 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 da, that, but they can't. It doesn't work. Like, just try something else. I think for the mood that this show is, clearly trying to go for, like, go do something more somber, do something sad, do something sad and subtle, like something quiet, something almost understated, something obscure, I guess. Like, this isn't any of those things. This is like what you hear in like a kids movie where the boy, it's like at the end of a kids movie where the boy, like, the main character is like some boy, some middle class suburban American boy, and he lost his dog Sparky, and then at the very end of the movie he finds Sparky in a field, and then he wins the baseball championship. Or it's like that's that kind of music. It's like, yeah, let's all walk off in the sunset together. Let's all buy ice cream from the ice cream man and sit around talking about fucking baseball players and shit. It's like that's the kind of like mood it creates. Like, what does that have to do with a bunch of fucked up German people, in the 1920s, right before the Nazis take over and fuck everything up even worse than it already is? It's like that. The two things, they just do not go together. They just do not go together like that. Just it doesn't fit. It just doesn't work. I don't understand what they're obsessed about here. But I don't know. Anything you'd like to add, Simone?
Yes, like I said, it works for some scenes, but at some point it's not really. Or at this point, or wherever the show is taking, whatever path they created or they want to follow or to take the show, it's not really relevant to put this song as. I think we already gone too far with this.
Yeah.
There are scenes, since as I said that I like this music before, that there are scenes that for me it works, but now it's the show is taking into a deep dive, more emotional, or like you said, a somber atmosphere, or a side of loneliness, or a verge of agony or whatnot that are taking place with all the character. And it seems like that this music is trying to bring sunset, right, or sunset or sunrise, or wherever it is, in the middle of a storm or whatnot. I hope that it might work in the following series of event, but not exactly in these high tension scenes.
No, the juxtaposition is just too much, and it's not a juxtaposition like with the weird avant-garde narrations over certain sequences of like violence or whatever. It just doesn't. It's not the same. It's not the same at all. So now, Simone, let me ask you this. So during the scene where Bruno visits Eva's apartment, do you think, was Bruno reaching for money when he goes down to get into what's in his pocket? Was he reaching for money, or was it a gun, like Franz and Eva thought? And what do you think?
Obviously, it's the money. It's just in the before he goes to the apartment, they're talking about giving Franz payment for, or some kind of payment for whatever happened to him, because it seems like that they're really responsible for what happened, that it might be a reason for him to sue them, and they're trying to eliminate him, to remove him in the scene, to prolong their business, or to get rid of whatever they wanted to do, or to get away from trouble. I think it's really a money because they in the scene they're talking about that France is not someone who will eye on them or really uh hold some grudge or really revenge for what happened. So it's definitely money.
Yep. And yeah, I don't see how it could any. I don't see any way that it could be a gun or whatever. Like I don't know why he would kill them when this. I mean, like Reinhold is the only one out of any of the criminals who actually wants like Franz dead. Mech likes him. The other criminals seem to like him well enough. Bruno likes him because he did a favor for him in the last episode. And the boss, even Pum seems to like him a lot for some reason. Like he sees potential in him as a henchman or whatever, right? So yeah, for me it would probably just be the money. And I guess there's a line of logic that you can follow in order to fully like cement this. I guess, but it's just for me. It's like I don't know why Bruno would be stupid enough to try and kill Franz when his boss literally ordered him. Gave him the orders specifically to give him the money in order to keep Franz quiet. Right? It would be so much more. It would just be so much messier, and it would raise the stakes to such a higher degree if one of them were to try and take Franz out, right? Because, and especially after knowing full well that people like Ava and Herbert have taken Franz's side like wholeheartedly and are more than willing to damage Pum's criminal syndicate and business without even needing to go to the police, right? Because Herbert's sent them threats and stuff like, "We'll come over, we'll fuck your shit up. We can, there are ways of fucking you over without snitching on you, right? Like that's always an option." And so it's like, no, I think that Ava, when it comes down to it, Ava was being hysterical and panicking, and Franz was too out of it from everything that had been going on up to that point to really form his own opinion on the situation. And of course, plus it didn't help that Bruno on his side of the situation, on his side of things, just panicked at the first sign of conflict. Right? He should have spoken up, but clearly he's too inexperienced, too young and inexperienced to handle this sort of scenario on his own. And it was bad all around. I think all parties involved were wrong in some way or another. But I guess no one really got hurt, so it doesn't really matter, right? But that's the way I see it. It's just Bruno. We've established that Bruno is sort of just immature, right? Like he gets into a fight in the last episode that almost fucking ruins his old. He could have gotten fired from the Pum's job or whatever for missing a day, but he didn't. But he's dumb. He's being an idiot. So I think that's what they've established today. Sort of like a young buck and all that, just kind of doing whatever he wants whenever he wants. Anything? All right, so let me ask you this now. What did you think of the fantasy sequence with the prostitutes in the burning street? Franz has just gone out to get fresh air or whatever, and he's still in sort of like a delusional state. And there's this weird abstract scene where he's talking to the devil, like we said before, or the man in the white suit. Like, what does all of that mean? Why is that there? What's going on?
Yeah, it's weird that I see it as similar to what happened in Inferno or about Dante Allegria. Yeah, it's similar to those kinds of temptations or kinds of consequences or whatnot. It seems like that in this particular scene, we can see the temptation, and it seems like that in the temptation itself that it's also enables us to see what the consequences is like. Yeah, it's really weird that it all comes together. It's just a lot of symbolism and whatnot.
Yeah,
and it's really surprising that this particular scene is involved or included in this film. But I didn't thought that the 1920s has this kind of weird red light district or whatnot. It seems like that I imagine it as something as this kind of prostitution is something like a secretive or not really known to the public or whatnot. But it's really a lot. I think I learned a lot in terms of historical aspects and also the part for the how it adds up an element to this particular episode.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, the scene it might have been similar to the scene might have been similar to how Franz had that. Yeah, so this is something we didn't mention, right? But when he passes out in Ava's apartment, he's actually talking to the narrator, the unseen narrator of the series so far. He and Franz actually have like a one-to-one sort of conversation in his head, kind of. It's a weird one, right? And it seems as though the narrator knows who Franz is, and he might be like a voice in his head or something. But Franz also has like a voice that is his own voice. It's the actor's voice, right? So there's a voice that is distinctly Franz, and then there's this other much more disembodied voice that we don't really know too much about. It's very ambiguous, right? But so the two of them actually had direct communication in this episode, and I feel as though the interaction that Franz had with the man in the white tuxedo in the hellish street full of like very demonic, like I guess whores or prostitutes, that was just another instance of Franz getting in touch with his subconscious, maybe with the subconscious part of his mind, right, or of his being, if you want to put it that way. And of course, you can interpret it however you'd like, because it really is that abstract. There's no set answer, I don't think. But for me personally, this scene was Franz resisting death, basically, pretty much, right? The man in the white tuxedo, the way I see it is that he was trying to use flesh to seduce Franz into giving up on life, and going brain dead, perhaps, appealing, kind of like offering him the thing that he would want the most, or maybe not want the most, but would succumb to the most, the thing that he's weak for, right? That's his weakness. That's his kryptonite. Is this weird? He has this awful, like, dysfunctional, psychotic relationship with sexuality, just human sexuality, and it makes him violent and everything. That's why he killed his wife. I think it was over sex, right? Like, it was because his wife was cheating on him or something, or he was obviously cheating on his wife, and it made him unhealthy. It just messed with his state of mind. The man in the white tuxedo, the devil himself, probably offers him what would destroy him. But because Franz has put that life behind him, he instead chooses to keep on going and continue living, and not give in, not succumb, not die, basically. Because if he did that, he might very well die. That might be the last hope for him if he ever goes back. It's like with alcoholics, it's like one drop of alcohol, you might be fucked. You might drink yourself to death. You might be screwed. After like 40 years of sobriety, it doesn't matter. You could be sober for 50 years, and if you have a drink and you get back into it, you're all that progress is erased, right? It's a similar thing with this. It's almost as though Franz is like a sex addict. It's what makes him violent. There's this weird relationship between those two things, for him especially, right? But yeah, he's put that life behind him now, and rather than die in a pool of his past mistakes, he will seek instead to mend them by moving forward, forever forward. Always just constant forward momentum. So that's how I interpreted it. The burning street may have been the visceral embodiment of the part of Franz's life that has been haunting him since the start of the series, and even long before it, right? The fact that he stared it straight in the eye and turned down all the offers surrounding it anyway, show that he's on the path to redemption after all, slowly but surely. And because, of course, he'd rather contend in the real world than go back to a life of easy pleasures and dysfunctional violence. The fact that he was able to resist, I think it shows that he's getting a little better. He's moving up a little bit with every episode. So, anything you'd like to add, Simone?
Probably if this kind of scene is showed in the first episode, it seems like that everything will fall into pieces. That he's in the middle of some kind of problem during the time, that he's not really stable or not in himself. And imagine if it's this kind of character is introduced in the first parts of the whole series, it would be a total chaos. But now that we're able to see that it was not only a scene that is included in the show, but it's something that we can connect, or it tells a different story when it comes to Frank's character. That it's really something that for us to see how he developed as a character.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny too because that weird ass weird fucking scene is immediately followed by another pretty weird scene. Let's just be honest, because he goes from that, he goes from handling himself, and that's the interesting thing, right? Because I almost feel as though like part of the surreal aspect of that scene is that he's so casual, he's so normal and calm. Like when he's talking to the voices in his head or whatever, when he's talking to his imagination or whatever, right? Like he's the normal one like within the context of his hallucinations, but then he's a fucking weirdo in real life. That's what they established because and that's the interesting thing because once he leaves the street, you don't get to see it because it gets blocked by a wall and everything goes back to normal. It's conventional reality, normal, just everyday surroundings and stuff. But you don't get to see if it was actually there or not. You don't get to see like the real version of the street just empty and without like prostitutes and everything. So you don't know. It's left ambiguous, right? But I mean, we can all probably assume that it's just a hallucination or like a fever dream or something, some weird thing going on in his head, right? And so it's interesting that the key thing to look out for there is like just how normal he is around his the weird figments of his imagination. But then immediately after that, when he goes into a bar just to get a few drinks, he acts like a fucking weirdo, So it's the exact opposite. It's like when he's around normal people, he's the weird one. But then like it's just so. I think it shows that he's fighting those demons in his head, but the fight, like it's not over yet. It's far from over. He's deep into that fight. I think what it establishes is that that's kind of almost how he is all the time. He might actually see stuff like that constantly because in all the other episodes so far, he's been talking to himself in the streets. He's been doing weird shit, like just unhealthy stuff. Not the kind of thing that normal people tend to do usually. He's always acting as though he's like in the midst of a psychotic breakdown, right? And so it's like that's with this, it's just another one. It's like maybe this glimpse into his mind. Maybe that's how it is all the time. Maybe he sees shit like that constantly. We don't know, right? It would be an interesting twist if that turns out to be the case, right? And like if that burning street and stuff, if that's his world all the time, that'd be really interesting. But yeah, it's like so he gets into the bar. And what I want to know, Simone, is what did you think of this scene? The scene where Franz he goes into this bar. There's no one there, just the female bartender and her friend. And he orders 3 beers and the Kumler, little shot of like Kumler, which is like some sort of probably like a German vodka type drink or something, clear alcohol, right? And Franz he like has a whole conversation with he talks to his alcoholic beverages and even role plays as them a little. So what do you think? What's going on there? I'd like to hear your take on it. It's a weird one.
Yeah, that's really a weird one to compare it to the other one. There's like it seems like that really the last scene. It seems like that it's a part of his imagination that it might be not true, or it's just for him to test things out. That if we're going to take it as kind of imagination for him, that and it seems like that he's able to conquer or to manage himself in. It seems like that this was an illusion for him, that he's able to manage things that are taking place inside his head, but it not be true that this is not the real scenario. It might be the particular scene that he wants the people that surround him he wants them to see, or for us to see, that to say that I'm sane, that I'm normal, just like any one of you, but the reality is it might not be that way.
Yeah, and it's like well, and another thing about the whole difference between fantasy and reality in this episode or whatever, in these two scenes especially, it's like maybe part of the reason why he acts so normal in his fantasies is because he's closer to those than he is to reality. He's more detached from reality and more set in his fantasies, and so he's just more comfortable in his fantasy world at this point. He's just more familiar with it. Like it's where he spends most of his time. And then when he's kind of forced to be in the real world, there's this contrast, there's this sharpness or whatever that makes it harder for him to just be normal or whatever. It's like he's just too deep into the other thing to be wholly present in the real world, in reality. And the drink, that itself, it's like it's an oddly like it's a strangely complex like role play that he does with the drinks. It's not just like a quick one and done thing. Like he actually takes a lot of time to like give them all weird personalities and like develop them almost. Like there's like character development like in with the drinks. It's really weird, right? So it's like Franz he characterizes these drinks all differently for some reason. None of them are exactly the same. They're like people, you know. They all have different personalities and whatnot. So for example, to him, the Kumler, which is like the vodka or whatever, that it has a Napoleon complex, which is like when Napoleon complex. It's when you're short or when you're insecure, and so you have to like you feel the need to like overemphasize things or prove something to somebody, right? Like that. That's he gives the Kumler the shot glass. He gives that a Napoleon complex. It's small, so it feels like it has something to prove, and tastes much more harsher than the taller beers because of it, right? And that's why it's so strong is because it's smaller, so it feels like it has to overcompensate almost. Like that's how he characterizes it in his head. And then as for the three beers themselves, Franz provides them with each like with a slightly different perspective with regards to how he's drinking them or whatever. Like he has them comment on his relationship with them almost. It's really weird. So for example, the first beer, it encourages Franz to chug him, right? Drink me as fast as possible. Like let's just have fun. You're thirsty. You got to get it out. And it's like all of these. I feel like they all just reflect how he feels at the time, right? It's like the first beer like demands that he drink him as fast as possible because Franz just got off the street. He's hot. He's fresh off, being outside, so he just wants to drink it. He's thirsty. He needs he needs a beverage, right? He's using it as a beverage, not really to enjoy it, but just to have something to drink real quick. So of course, like the first beer is going to like demand that he drink them as quickly as possible. Like, come on, do it quickly, because that's just how he is. So, but he gave it he like depersonalized or whatever so much that he put his personality onto that thing. He imprinted it onto that object, and so that covers that. Now his thirst has been. God damn, what is this fucking so bright? So the first one quenches his thirst. He's not as thirsty anymore. He doesn't need to drink because he's dehydrated, right? And so then the second one comes in, and from there reminds him to take it steady a little bit. Calm down. Like you've had your first beer. Now that you're not thirsty anymore, take it easy. That's his mind telling him to do that too. Obviously, right? Like we all have that point where it's like, don't feel like maybe you're maybe not with alcohol, but like let's just say like something you really like ice cream or something, right? Like when you're a kid and you're eating ice cream, it's like maybe you have like one scoop and it's really good, but then you're gonna go to have the second one and like your brain just sort of tells you like, be careful, you don't want to get a brain freeze, you don't want it to be a little too much, so take it a little slower. Now you're kind of calming down a little bit. Things are flatlining a little more. We're getting into a chiller kind of state of mind, right? And so yeah, the second beer tells him to chill because it personifies Franz's sort of fear or anxiety about being humiliated in public because he doesn't want to get too drunk. He doesn't want to overdo it to the point where he's like a staggering drunk, in the street and everyone's looking at him. And it's weird, So that drink embodies that. And then, God, it's fucked. The third drink wishes him. It's weird. It wishes him good luck and expresses its admiration for him. It's like, I love you so much. Like, you're great. Drink me. Really, it's like, why? And that's probably because Franz has just drank. He's consumed a lot of alcohol in a short period of time, and so it's probably made him a little. When people drink, they get very affectionate. Like, oh, I love you, buddy. I love you so much. It's like it's probably that thing, but he's just doing it with himself because he's that lonely. He's that much of a weirdo. So it's all of those parts. It's all those things from him just being imprinted onto the drinks themselves. It all comes from him. So it's interesting how that is, right? It's interesting how he conveys that through the drinks themselves, right? It's like a weird sort of ventriloquism almost. And so, yeah, I think generally speaking, there's an aspect of this of this scene that sort of like demonstrates Franz's sort of like a pretty impressive ability to handle adversity, right? because it's weird. I keep saying that, but it really is weird, right? Because it's like he in this episode in particular, he appears to be at his cheeriest and most optimistic in the series so far. Like he's really kind of happy almost a little bit. Maybe it's not like a true happiness, but it's sort of like a manic, like unhealthy, unstable happiness, but it's still happiness nonetheless, I would say, right? And it's weird because it's the same episode. It's the very same episode where he literally loses a limb. He loses his arm, right? He got his arm chopped off. But here he is, him talking to the beers out loud in the bar while the bartender and her friend just watch not too far from where he's sitting. To me, it shows that he doesn't care about what other people think of him. He's at peace with himself and the world to a certain degree, in a certain kind of way. And as fraught with apparent psychosis and mental illness as he may be, even at the best of times, it seems as though he's better now. He's better now in part 7 than he was at the beginning in, say, part 1 or part 3. He's always sort of been overcome or overwhelmed by things that are beyond his control. But it's like here, it seems as though those elements, like they still control him, but he's sort of been able to coexist with them a little more, cohabitate, at least to a certain degree, right? At least to a certain extent. And, yeah, I think what it says just overall is that he's come a long way thus far. But also that there's still plenty more to go, right? I mean, we're only halfway through, 50%. Another 50% to go, right? More growth, more development, etc. And I think the thing he needs to do right now is evolve out of this instability. That's what it seems like. Because it's the thing now that's keeping him from being perfectly at ease. In other words, it's the latest problem. His latest problem is that his emotional states are still too strong and unpredictable, and it makes him somewhat scary and unhinged because you never know what he's going to do. You never know if it's going to get the better of him. So he's still fighting with it. But yeah, anything you'd like to add, Simone?
We can also look back to other parts that it seems like in the first part, he's denying the help from other things, different yeah outside factors that might help him to get out or fix whatever he's going through. But he's denying it. He wanted to do everything on his own, and it seems like that this is all it is. This is what he's able to. He's trying to build uh, some things of his own, some sort of a system where he would be able to do things on his own, to check on uh, himself on his own. But it seems like that it's not yet polished. It's not really a system that he can depend on right now. But maybe soon it might be polished, or will enable him to be uh, more a normal kind of person.
Yeah, he still has plenty of like kinks to work out with his like personal system or whatever. That's for sure. So last few questions here, Simone. What did you think of like the cackling woman that Franz picks up at the bar? Why is she so like ready? Why is she so tolerant? Why is she so ready to accept him? And why does she laugh at like literally everything he says? She's kind of a weirdo herself, isn't she? So like what's going on there? I guess.
Yeah, it's just really weird. I didn't know what has been introduced in this one. She's not really the one that Franz might go out with, because she's weird. It's to compare her with the other woman that Franz met. She's not really the one, but I think that she's able to get through this particular episode because she has a particular role that she needs to fulfill uh to be able to blend particular elements that Franz might be able to do.
Yeah. And so like what role does she actually play though? Like specifically, like why is she even there? You know?
Like I said, I think it's a bit too far, or a more advanced episode, or the preceding episode that took place when she entered the scene. The scene in the bar, that the how they how they created a scene or a dialogue or a skit where the man that they just met or that they were able to explain how we see things differently. And also with her character, she's really different. She's also one of those people that see things very differently from us. That they that there might be something from her, or it's not. It might be this her character. It's just her full character.
So she's like another like outsider, kind of like Franz. It's like Franz sees things very differently. We've established with the, the whole the burning street scene. Every just the way he talks to himself and like has these weird like little games that he plays with himself and these weird conversations and stuff. Like his sense of humor and everything, his eccentricities. It's like this is another eccentric person. So it would make sense that they would click, and it would also make sense that they would end up finding themselves at that bar at the very end, because that seems to be like a, almost like a petri dish for weirdos and outsiders and everything, right? Outcasts and whatnot. So it's fitting in that sense. But overall, like you said, I mean, she is relatively insignificant because compared to someone like Lena, who was the first girl at the beginning, the Polish girl who could apparently read to see into the future and everything, like she had a whole thing going on. She felt like a major player, and she was weird, but she was normal enough, functional enough to kind of rein Franz in and be a good, let's say, contrast to him or foil to him. They fit together pretty well. But this girl clearly is just like a little too out of it, and it's because her personality is much more exaggerated because she's a minor character, right? She's probably only going to be in this part. And Franz knows that, and that's why at the very end he's like, he tells the other guy like, "Hey, it's okay. I don't really, we had fun, but I got more important shit to take care of. I got other business to attend to. It wasn't a major priority for him because she isn't a major priority narratively, and so it goes hand in hand pretty well, I would say, which is the point. It's designed that way, but you know what I mean. So yeah, Simone, this is something that I forgot about earlier, actually, but I'm glad I remembered it. I wrote it down. I'm glad I wrote it down because I probably would have forgot otherwise. But there's a bit of another weird part. There are a lot of weird moments in this episode. That's kind of what I like about it. It's like it's a fun little weird installment. But Simone, so in the subway scene, in the subway station, when Franz is talking to Mech after he lost his arm for the first time after he lost his arm and everything. Why does Franz ask Mech if he knows what it's like to lose a father, right? Like, what does that even mean? Are we meant to take that literally, or is there more to it than that? Because, for like a minute or so, like a full 60 seconds, he goes on this whole thing about how, like, he's like, I want to know, like, did you have a dad in your life? Did you lose him? What was that like? Like, where does that even come from? And like, what's the point? It's a bit random, so I'm curious to know what you think.
Yeah, it's a weird number, so might be probably my answer to that would also be quite random to my first answer. It could be he's pertaining to himself. Franz is talking about to himself that it seems like they're friends that even though Mac can handle things on his own, it seems like that there's a kind of dependency, or not exactly dependency, but there's a particular connection between him and Franz that um, they can both afford to lose in this sense. But also it could be he's comparing, but it kind of off, but it could be his pertaining to his hands or kind of far or whatever it's guided. Or during the show, I noticed that we're not able to see other background for Meg's character. It just he's presented as a concerned friend of Franz. It might be there might be other supporting events from his past that are not yet revealed, or probably this scene is all about it. There might be a possible thing that took place that with regards to Meg's father that might bind them together, or for Meg to lead this life, or whatnot.
Right, yeah. So maybe from a storytelling, like writing perspective, it might be just here to set the groundwork, just establish something that can be picked up on later in the future, maybe. And maybe it'll even lead us to see flashbacks about Franz and his early life, his childhood, his teenage years, his 20s and 30s, and so on and so forth. Because it seems like he's in his 40s. I'm guessing he's in his 40s, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see a little more of that. Maybe that's what it's doing. It's just laying the groundwork, establishing things, setting up for later. But it's weird because the only thing I really got out of it personally was that immediately after this scene takes place, right? You cut to the bar, right? The bar with all the smoke in it, and it's that environment with all the weirdos in it. And one of the men in the bar, I think it's the guy with the top hat. He's like a performer. He's like wearing the top hat and it's a theatrical outfit, right? He's telling the thief who brings up the whole thing about definition later on. He's talking to the thief. Let's call him Top Hat. Top Hat is talking to the thief about his own father. And that scene takes place immediately after. That's the transition. So we go from Franz asking Mech about his dad to these two people in the bar talking about the Tuxedo Man's dad, Top Hat's dad, right? And Top Hat explains to the thief, as they're playing pool, that his father, his dad, was crippled in the war or something, and is either living off of government benefits now or was denied them. I think he was denied them because the thief then starts going on a tangent about how war veterans don't deserve welfare benefits or something equally edgy and controversial like that. It's basically that times equivalent of like some troll on the internet saying something stupid for attention, basically. It really is. It's the same sort of dynamic, right? And I have no idea what any of this means because it's all very haphazard and stream of consciousness from a narrative point of view, right? Like it's like, why are these things? It's like word association, It's like word association only, except that the things that are being strung together here, they make sense. Well, I guess that is word association, isn't it? Because with word association, it's like how some people have like a bunch of random magnets on their fridge that have different words on them, and you can, it's like for fun, they just like mix the words up, and you can make sentences and stuff. And I guess it's like scrambling words. That's just one example of that, but that's word association, basically, right? Or like you cut out a bunch of words, you slips of paper, you put them into a hat, you shake up, or a bowl, and you shake up the bowl, you pick words out of it, and then you write a poem using them or something stupid like that. That's what's going on here. It's like word association. Those words make sense on their own. Like, let me just come up with some random shit example. Like, I don't know, discovery, transformer, pilgrim. It's like those three words, they make sense on their own, right? Like, discovery is the act of discovery. It's the act of finding something out. Like Christopher Columbus discovered America or whatever, right? Or Newton discovered his science stuff, and I can't remember it for some reason. Newton's law. Newton discovered Newton's law, let's just say. Well, he created it and all that. So then the other words in that, God, it's kind of all over the place, but like a transformer, it's like a transformer is a generator or it's a robot, depending on how you think of it. And a pilgrim is someone who came to America, one of the colonial folk, Thanksgiving and all that, right? You got the black religious dress and everything, and the Indians are sitting down and you're having Native Americans, whatever, you're eating turkey with them and shit, Those three things make sense on their own, but when you put them together, it creates something. It's greater than the sum of its parts. Maybe it's greater, maybe it's less, maybe it's lesser than them, but it's not the same thing, right? So if I say, if I say Pilgrim Transformer Discovery, what the fuck does that mean? Is it a transformer that turns into a pilgrim? That looks like a pilgrim that discovered something? Like what is that? That's not those same three things on their own. It's something else entirely, and so that's how I see this episode. Just in general, it's like you put all these things together. The things that are being strung together, they make sense on their own terms, but take on a whole new sort of, just let's just be honest, like confusing meaning in sequence. Anything you'd like to add to that, Simone?
Yeah, I don't really get what's the connection of the last improve into the transition of this one. Yeah, it is. It's also a whole different scene, I guess.
I mean, I guess like the way I don't know, like I guess I can think of why it happens, but I just don't know why it happens from like I don't know why they wrote it. Does that
Yeah,
make sense? Like I don't know why they put it in the show because it's like the way I see it. It's like, well, Franz probably asked Mech about his dad because he hangs out at that bar because that's where he works or whatever, or that's close to where he works. So he's probably talked to the top hat guy before, and that conversation has probably come up, and so he probably was just thinking about it in the subway and then decided to bring it up to Mech just because he was thinking about it out of the blue. But it's like I don't get why that's like I don't know why they needed to include that. It's like if they had a scene where Franz is just taking a shit for 5 minutes and he runs out of toilet paper, so he has to wipe his ass with his hand or something. It's like what? Why is that in the like? Do we need to see that? Like they're all human beings. They probably do go to the bathroom, but it's like does seeing them go to the bathroom actually contribute anything to the series overall or to the art or to the message or whatever? It's like does that actually improve the viewing experience or is it just pointless shit? Like I almost feel as though this is the first thing I would say in the series so far that the first like avant-garde or like unconventional artsy fartsy thing that they've put in that almost feels a bit unnecessary or pointless or just weird. It's like why like what is like I can explain the other ones because there's the meaning is right there. It's very clear. It's effective, but I don't feel like this was it was very muddled. It was like what's going on? I mean, I guess it contributes to the overall feeling of the episode, but it's like other than that, it's I don't like what am I supposed to what are we supposed to get out of this, you know? Anything else you'd like to add to that? Because I'm kind of stumped.
yeah, I get it. It's a thing. It's okay, but with connection to the previous one, the previous scene. It does it's kind of little uh, some bolts or gaps in it that it would be better if they're talking about some things or not really connect it with the last words that are uh, mentioned in the last one.
Yeah, and maybe it was literally just there to make like a nice transition or something. But it felt like I don't know. It might come up again, and that might explain it. But it might have just been a creative. For all we know, it might have just been a neat little transition or something. Like let's do something clever to go from scene A to scene B, and let's just have it be this weird conversational topic thread or whatever. I don't know. So Simone, let me ask you this now. We're getting to the end of our discussion here. So what I want to know is, well, we've talked about it, and here it is. What did you think of the scene in the bar with all the cripples and performers and the song by Silly? It's probably the most important part of this episode, I would say. Even though, again, it's like a lot of other things in the series so far. It's like not a lot happens that's like super dramatic or whatever, but a lot does happen. There's a lot of substance in it. So I'm curious to know what you got out of it as a viewer.
I don't really know. It's kind of surreal or it's it's really unexpected that how things are how they are able to put things all together in this one. That are aside from the new things that appear, there are also things from the past that are seems to visit or try to put things together. It's really if I'm going to summarize the whole episode, it's just they're able to put things together, the new and the old ones, that it's become coherent or it adds up a different element or a different fact for the whole show. And um, and this one, it's a really good scene to in the transition to how this episode will end, or then to get another climax or falling action or whatnot. Uh, it's weird. It just especially in the scene where Celia discovered that Franz is still alive and all that, and she dumped Meg for not telling the truth or whatever. It's really weird. It's just putting all together a big kind of revelation, but it's also another part of the whole episode, a kind of new discovery or creation of a different themes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like the way I see it. It's like scenes like this were what I expected from the series overall. I kind of thought the oh god, my light's like really fucked tonight. I'm gonna have to figure that out later. But yeah, it's like for me, scenes like this are like that set this sort of mood and everything. I kind of expected that to be the mainstay of the series as a whole. Like I thought this was what it was going to be like pretty much all the time. You know, lots of smoke-filled bars and pool games and weirdos that when you put them all together, they sort of add up to the society around them in some way or another, right? They're sort of like a living personification of what the society is at the time, all of its problems, all of its vices, all of the corruptions and so forth, right? Maybe you've got the veteran who is got a lot of PTSD and he's depressed and suicidal or whatever because he doesn't get the proper mental health treatment that he deserves or whatever, right? Maybe you've got the thief who steals because it's very easy to steal because the police aren't doing their job or they don't have enough resources to administer justice the right way, right? People like that, characters like that. You've got all the cripples who are messed up because of the war because governments forced them to fight for causes that they might not have really cared about when all was said and done. They were used as pawns and all that, and maybe they're crippled because the warfare itself was very brutal and not humane at all. Now, I don't know if there is such a thing as a humane war, but it's like, I mean, when you look at World War I, it's pretty fucked. Like no one would want to live through that. Trench warfare, diseases eating your foot, and shit like that. Mustard gas and all. It's brutal. It's fucking rough. It's not a good time. It was very brutal transition to modernity, going from Prussian War with all the Napoleonite sort of Napoleonic weaponry and stuff, just like black, like powdered rifles and the big things like on the helmets, the big feathers and shit. That's very archaic. You go from that, just a few decades later, you go to World War I. It's just a fucking mess. It's like everything sucks. And then you go from that to a few decades later to World War II. It's like so much changes, and we see these things as all completely different, but it's all one line. It's all the same. It's all the same world. It's all the same history. It's all the same life, pretty much. But yeah, for me, I honestly don't know more. If I don't know if I have much more to say beyond that, beyond this bar scene being sort of emblematic of what I expected from the series overall. It's just the mixture of let's say unbridled human emotion with decaying social structures and a basic existential need to be free and independent. That's what these kinds of stories are all about, and I think they're great because of it. They set a certain sort of mood that you can't get anywhere else. These early, let's say like early 20th century stories about the outsider, the loner. We had the charmer. We have this. It's similar sorts of things. There's a lot of social commentary. There's a lot of existential, let's say like Kafka-esque, because Kafka was I think he was he wrote a lot in the 1920s, didn't he? 1910s and 20s. That's when he was primarily active, maybe. So it's that Kafka-esque existentialism. That's when existentialism became a thing. Not only did it become a thing, but it became the thing. So it would make sense that stories from that period would be about very similar things, right? And I like it. So anything you'd like to add to that, Simone?
It's also a good introduction to how things are. It's not really historic, but it's kind of, yeah, it's historic, but it's a more of the way we learn about history or something. Maybe I get off. It's not likely. We're only looking at the series of events, not exactly to how things really work back then or the common ground where things are. It's just we're outsiders. We're really outsiders, and this one we're able to really put ourselves into it to look how mess up those particular era is, or in its transition to much worse.
Yeah. Right, exactly. It's just it's a nice thing to tie it all together, like we said before. So second to last question, Simone. What did you think of what the thief in the bar had to say about the subjective / relative nature of definition? Was he onto something there with that monologue that he gave and demonstration with the cackling woman or whatever, or is it just his weird sort of rascally way of justifying his own vices for a bit of a laugh? Is he taking it that seriously? Like, should we even look into this that way, or I don't know? Where do you stand on all of it? Definition, the relative nature of definition, subjectivity.
Yeah, it's also interesting how he came up or to got these things up, but the way that it's also a good thing to look at this or to consider this kind of perspective in a lot of things to fully understand how different we are or how differently things work, or there's not even similarities or whatnot with it most of the time, but the way that he introduced this kind of thing is it's purely subjective. It's trying to justify himself for whatever uh, scenes or the things that he did, wrong things that he did in the past, that he's kind of running away from it. The same with France, or but it's not as worse as uh, France's situation is much better, I guess, because it seems like that he doesn't really wanted to do harm to the people in his immediate environment.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy's a little more malicious. I mean, we don't really know too much about him, but just based on what he's presented to us so far, Franz isn't a thief. All right, he might kind of be from the last one, or he's a like, what do they say, like an accessory to crime or whatever, an accessory to burglary. And he's a former criminal. I mean, he's done some shady shit in his past. I mean, aside from obviously killing his wife or whatever, pretty big deal there. But he's not like that now, and that's what counts. I mean, they're two different people now. Maybe that's what they established. There's a contrast between the two of them. But yeah, just in terms of like the thief's argument in general, like I think it raises an interesting question, or maybe several interesting questions. But obviously, I think the context sort of ruins his credibility altogether. You know what I mean? Like the real topic of conversation here. I think the real topic of conversation here has to do more to do with laws and the way a society puts them into place. Like questions like how should we govern ourselves as a society, as a people? How do we balance order with humaneness in order to achieve justice? Lots of heady topics like that, and none of which are actually directly addressed by the thief himself. Because, of course, the way I see it, I mean, he's only really just dicking around to entertain the rest of the patrons in the bar, right? Because after he puts on his little show, everybody claps. They don't take it too seriously. It's just a cheeky intellectual joke, basically. It's a highbrow kind of thing, even though these are weirdos or whatever. It's like a classy kind of joke or something like that, I guess, right? But no, I think all it would take for someone to pick up, I think all it would take to kind of derail his argument or whatever, because it is kind of like a joke argument. It would probably be to just pick up a book on ethics and read the preface. That's all it would probably take to tear down the thief's argument. There's probably something in there that immediately addresses that, because to me it's like I feel like I mean, maybe not though. Maybe not. Maybe that's how messed up the system is or whatever. Maybe that's an oversight or something. But it's like the way I see it, that has to be something that maybe I'm putting too much faith in the system or whatever. But it's like there has to be something in there that just immediately disproves that. Maybe that's why it's funny, is because it's so wrong or whatever. But I don't know. I'm out of my depth here as a layman. I'm not as versed in ethics as I'd like to be. But maybe someday. Yeah, I just because it's an issue that would take too long to get into here. I'll just leave it at that for me personally. I won't answer explicitly, I guess, or I won't try to take apart the thief's argument explicitly. But I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to. And that's my stance, I guess. Maybe it's cheap, maybe it's a cop out, but it's how I feel when I put my finger on the pulse, if that makes sense. It's like I have a feeling that there's something there that already just handles the whole thing. But I don't know. Simone, do you have one? Do you have like a counter argument to the thieves at all, or anything like that?
I think I'm kind of unprepared for this kind of conversation, or to, especially other people that are involved in the scene, that it seems like that he sparked this kind of conversations out of nowhere to just justify his arguments or whatnot. That
Yeah.
you're not really prepared for this kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess he can win. I don't know. I don't. He can have the victory or whatever. I don't know. I don't really care. But it is an interesting one. I hope. I honestly hope they because it seems like the thief's going to be a character from now on. So like I hope they do more like this because it was an interesting little moment. You know, it's like if you really wanted to, you could take that one scene and just talk about it for like 30 minutes or something. You know, you could get into all the maybe like Aristotle's perspective on it, maybe Plato's perspective. You know, something like that. You talk about justice and all that, Michael Santon or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we're already coming up to like an hour and 36 minutes, so we should probably like end this soon. So I will lead in now to the last question of the discussion for tonight, Simone. What I want to know is why did Franz tell the thief? Why did he give the thief his address at the end, at the very end of the episode? Right? Does he want? Do you think he wants him to steal something for him, maybe? Or is Franz gay now all of a sudden, and he wants him to come over so they can, do the? I guess it wouldn't be this, but it would be like something like that. I don't know. What do you think is going to happen in Part 8 in general? Like, what's the whole deal with that? What's going on?
I think like Fransley took an interest into this to this tip, into this person.
Yeah.
Now that the bridges are already burned down, that Max will probably not be the same with how he is and throughout the other episodes, that maybe Franz is looking for a new friend, or maybe to work on things out, to reflect on some things that are going on in his throughout the show.
Right, yeah, because I mean that's why he talked to Reinhold in the first place, right? Because he thought he was another criminal too. So he thought, or a convict rather. He thought they had both gone to prison, so it might have been something to like bring them together. You know, he wanted a friend, he wanted a companion, he wanted someone to work through everything with. Maybe it's the same way with the thief. You know, maybe he sees him as a sort of kindred spirit, someone who has gone through similar experiences, someone who knows what it's like. I guess a real one, an everyman, someone he could relate to. So maybe that's what it comes down to. But I have a feeling that because all of these people are horribly dysfunctional, some shit's probably going to go down. You know, it's probably something messed up's going to happen. Maybe the thief will get involved with Pums and the fruit trade, and yeah, drama will ensue. But I'll save my predictions for. Well, I won't save them. I'll just not make them, and then when I watch, I'll know what happens, right? So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Hour and like 40-minute discussion. How do you think it went, Simone? I mean, this is again. I say this every time, but it's always different. It's always weird. I'm never really quite sure how to approach each episode in terms of, I guess, translating it into podcast form or whatever. So, how do you think this went tonight for part 7?
I think it's also good. I mean, in the sense that we're able again to get the most, or to talk about almost the highlights of the show. A lot of different aspects that that this show presented that makes it different from the whole other episodes.
Yeah, and well, just in general, I mean, now that we're well, this is also I guess the 30th episode of the Imperial Tides podcast. So yay, we've actually managed to do 30 somehow. You know, that's a pretty big deal. Even though I guess we kind of cheated a little bit because I mean, maybe not cheated, but it's like these last 7 have all been about the same thing. So it's not what I expected when I originally started this, right? It's like I used to think that it would just be every single episode is a movie. It's a self-contained thing, but no, this is a series. I'm not sure if it's cheating, but it's like we're 7 episodes deep into this, and we're also 7 episodes deep into the series, obviously, right? We're halfway through Berlin Alexanderplatz. We're 50% of the way done. We just have to do this again. We just have to do these 7 things again. So, how are you feeling? We're at the halfway mark. We might as well do a little progress update or whatever. So, just in general, how has it been so far? How has watching Berlin Alexanderplatz been as an experience overall?
Yeah, it's really good. That it's not really predictable. It's not even. I can't even any of my predictions that I did from the previous ones, or getting into watching the show, sitting and watching the show, it's not really any of those predictions doesn't really take place, or it's really hard to predict. And now I think that it, if I'm going to run some prediction, it might not really goes the way that how I imagine it.
Yeah.
It's really the opposite way or another way around.
Well, that's the brilliant thing about the series overall, isn't it? It's like real life. You know, you don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know. You have no idea. And so anything is possible. It's ironic. It's weird how that works, right? It's like it's not a fantasy. You know, it's like with a science fiction movie or something. It's like usually there are set rules. There's like a set path. You kind of know what's going to happen. But here it's like anything could happen. It's really it's refreshing. You know, it's a lot of fun, and it helps that you've got Renee Warner Fassbinder, who's this big guy in television and film working on it. This is his creation. It's great. I really enjoy pretty much everything about it so far. Even the things I don't enjoy about it, I kind of like. They have a certain charm to them. Even the harmonica, you know, even the harmonica, I listen to that any day of the week over something that's boring. At least it inspires emotion and everything, even if it's not great emotion. It's like, yeah, I'll take it. I don't mind. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. It's weird. It's like it feels super long, but also super short at the same time. Berlin Alexanderplatz. It's 14, 15 hours, but I don't know. I don't mind talking about it. It's weird. It's like I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted. It's like half of me wants to take a break now. Half of me wants to keep going, but obviously we're going to keep going because that's what we said we'd do. We're going to pull through. Hopefully, maybe if things work out, we could do like a video a day. And if not, then I might start doing more solo stuff because I keep saying that I will and I never do. So if I start doing solo stuff, it'll probably be my Ingmar Bergman marathon, because I have somewhere here, I have my, let's see. I still have my collection to get into, so maybe I'll dive into this because there's like a lot to cover. I'll review those if Simone is not available for these, but other than that, guys, hope you all enjoyed. This was episode 7 of 14 of Berlin Alexanderplatz. This was also episode 30 of the Imperial Tides podcast. The episode was called "You Can Amputate an Oath," and so yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all those fun little things. Interact with us. We'll start a club. We'll build a treehouse. We'll cut our heads off or something. I don't know. And yeah, take care and bye for now.